I'm Steve Butler with Port Jervis Deer Park Television, and I have the great pleasure of sitting with two internationally known and certainly well-recognized professional artists who will be displaying a collection of their works here at the R.H. Smith Mercantile in the center of downtown Port Jervis. Also with me today is Ann Rogers, who is the owner, manager, host, guest, event coordinator for the gallery itself. There will be an opening reception for this show that will be a collection of the works of JoAnne and Joe, and that will be on Saturday, November 1st from 6 to 9 p.m. Admission is free. So come on down. I know you'll enjoy meeting the artists and seeing their amazing work. And if you haven't been in this facility before, into the Mercantile space, come on down because this is a work of art in itself. Without any further ado, let's meet the artist and the proprietor. Good afternoon, everybody. How are you?
Absolutely fabulous, Brody. Absolutely fabulous.
DiMaggio, JoAnne Kalish, and Ann Rogers, the proprietor and owner. And thank you, Ann, for allowing us to shoot down here today. Great, super. How long have you two guys been in this area? I know your art career is long and varied, and we could probably talk for most of the afternoon on that. But
basic rule of thumb is don't lie. You know, you really shouldn't lie, because if you lie and you're my age, you can't remember the lie, and then you're in a lot of trouble. So I would tell people, well, we've been here 10 years. And then I go, well, we've been here 20 years. We left New York in 1999, so it's maybe a little bit more than 20. It's 30 years? I don't know. Yeah. A long time.
A long time.
A long time.
Who would have thunk it?
And who would have thunk it? Yeah. You know, the old...
That's the way I look at it.
One of the old standing jokes years ago was that Port Jervis was because I used to ask people when I interviewed other people, how'd you get here? And they said, well, this was the end of the line. I had nowhere else to go unless I turned around and went back. So I ended up in Port Jervis.
People that are coming from New York said, how I get there? I said, take the train to the end of the line and walk across the street, and you're here at this magnificent gallery.
Yeah. And how did you two guys meet? I know you mentioned to me, JoAnne, that you met Joe when you were 19. How did you meet? What was the... I can tell there's going to be a good story here.
Well, we worked together. We were working for Nikon at the time. I was a technical advisor, and Joe was doing Nikon workshops.
Oh, okay.
And that's how it happened.
Was that in New York?
That was in New York, yes.
Yeah. You're just finishing up a show, I think, last winter. You just finished up a show down at Forest Hall in Milford.
We did a great show in Forest Hall in Milford, and it was a magnificent show. Great people, and everybody had a good time, and it lasted a little bit longer. I think it was close to 3 months. I mean, it was 3 months, you know. So we figured it was going to be 1 month, but it just kept going and going and going, and the people were just wonderful. It was just a great experience. Having said that, Ann has made this gallery into a space that I just, every time I'm here, I just go, oh my God, it is so beautiful. It really is. This is just probably one of the best spaces I've ever seen, not only for, you know, showing art, but for theater, music, whatever. It could be, you could use it for anything. And she's just an amazing individual. And I think it's going to be just a lot of fun. The name of the game, as far as I'm concerned right now, where I am in my life, is I'm looking for health and happiness and just continue to do my work as long as I can. For the better part of a half a century, I was working for some of the biggest corporations in the world, and you had to be on your best behavior all the time. And now that those organizations are really no longer, Sports Illustrated, for instance, is not in business anymore. So, but when you were working for them, you had to play the game by their rules. So what we do now, or what I do now, is I do what I want, when I want, where I want, and I just want to have fun, Brody. I just want to have fun. That's it. And if I can generate a couple of pieces of usable, good art, then that's fine. And if it's not good, nobody's going to see it except me. So that's the way it's going to be.
My brother has a line, he always says, make sure you throw away the bad stuff, because you don't want it laying around as part of your legacy. Don't save it.
The old saying was, a photographer is known by what he shows, not what he shoots. You know, he may shoot 400 or 500 images and only show 12. The only reason he's showing 12 is because they're the best 12. And why do we want to look at the outtakes? We don't want to look at the outtakes. Yeah. By the way, I should say something. You know, we're talking about myself, and we're talking about JoAnne, who's an amazing, absolutely amazing photographer and artist. One of the keys to this show is going to be Dennis Wheeler, and Dennis has been our mentor for approximately 50 to 55 years, and he's part of the New York City inner artist people. One time we were having lunch, and I was doing an interview with him, and he said to me, he had passed a comment. He said, "Well, yeah, Andy and I did this," and so I didn't pay any attention to it. And then he went back and said, "Well, Andy did this," and so somewhere, after the fifth Andy, I said, "Dennis, Andy who?" And he goes, "Andy." I said, "Yeah, Andy." He goes, "Andy Warhol. What the hell's wrong with you, you jerk?" What kind of an Andy? Like, it's Andy Warhol. And I go, "Oh, Andy Warhol." He's
He'll be part of the show. He's the third artist, so he'll be showing his numbers.
Well, if I certainly don't want to correct you, and I don't want to correct anybody. The way I look at it, he's 1, JoAnne's 2, and I'm 3. And he's, I think people are just going to be fascinated with, your brother's work is magnificent. It really is fabulous. And I think people are going to see Dennis's work, and they're going to have the same feeling. He's just he's got his 90th birthday on the 26th of this month, and all I can say is he's in the permanent collection of MoMA. He's in the major gallery, portrait gallery in National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. He's just absolutely wonderful.
He's well known and also well respected in the art community, nationally and probably internationally. Yes, Dennis.
Absolutely. And only because he sent this to me, and he's not here. When you're doing a show, everybody wants you to write something, a statement. And I've written, 50, 60 statements, 70 statements. And to be very honest with you, the bulk of what I'm writing is absolute, total bull. That's what it is, okay? It's, Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, I look at the work and I just, you just go on, and Picasso, I love Picasso's work, and you go on. And, it's like, you got to be kidding me. Stop already. You dare to put yourself in the same, not even close. So this is Dennis's statement here. So you can't believe this. Here's his statement. I start it, I guide it. The paint paints. The photographs do what they do. I stop it, I study it, I enjoy it. I may show it, I may not show it, and I may start a new one tomorrow.
That is so dense.
I mean, but
Dense.
It's the same thing that I wrote here, and I was going to just mention that itself. Thank you for doing it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's okay.
It's just, people are just going to freak out. I mean, he's just wonderful. And when it comes, he went, there isn't anything about art that he doesn't know. I mean, to this day, you would think that after studying with him for over 50 years, I'd know a lot. And what I'm actually learning is I know a little bit, and there's so much more to learn, and especially with the new technology. Yeah. The new technology, when this came out in 99, I despised it. And I said that as far as I'm concerned, I was weaned on black and white film, and all I'm going to do is I'm not going to recognize this garbage. This is trash. Give me a break. I'm not going to be bothered with this stuff. And now I'm not only bothered with it, but I can't. We gave away 800 rolls of film to the Cuban photographers in Havana because it's like gold. It's like solid gold.
Is that old Ektachrome?
It was Tri-X.
Okay.
Tri-X, and we did give them some Ektachrome. There was no use in giving them Kodachrome because they had no way of processing Kodachrome, but they could process Tri-X or Pan-X and stuff like that, black and white. And I look back at it now, and my assistants now leave us and go to Manhattan, and what's the first thing they do is they buy a film camera, and they go out and spend $20 for a roll of film, and maybe $20 to process it, and another $10 to make a scan. And I just scratch my head and I go, "You've got to be kidding me!" But it's amazing what's happened, and if you think of photography, that it started in 1838 and didn't get popular until about 1888. And if you think about it, we're talking about it's 120 years old. And what it has happened in the last 8 years compared to the, let's say, 1838 to that point, it was like, that was just like one little hair. And now it exploded with the new technology. And what we're using to photograph us today and to the sound, if you wanted to do this 50 years ago, it would probably cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 to get it properly done. So, time for me to shut up.
When was the last time you guys were in a dark room? Speaking of new technology.
Okay, I got a phone call from the director of HBO, and she said to me, "I need you for a week." Now, when you're a freelance photographer and somebody said they want you for a week, that's the equivalent of saying, "My God, I just hit the lotto," getting paid for either 5 consecutive days or 7 consecutive days. It doesn't get better than that. You're used to getting a day here, a day there, so on and so forth. So I said, "Yeah, I'm ready. Where are we going?" She goes, "New York." I said, "We're going to shoot in New York." "Fine. What are we going to shoot?" "No, we're not going to shoot anything." I said, "What do you mean we're not going to shoot anything?" "I need you to teach the photo staff of HBO photography." So I said, "Let me see if I understand this. You want me to teach the photo editors photography?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Something is not right here." I said, "They're the photo editors. They know photography." "No, they don't." Because we bring them up from other parts of HBO, and some of them could be secretaries, some of them could be writers, but they really don't. There were 15 of them, but they just really didn't have the level. They didn't know what the words meant. She said, "Well, if somebody says the negative is too thin," they go, "What's that mean?"
There's no relevance or
Yeah, it's thin. It's dark. Okay, it's dark. You can't see it. It's thin. And if it's thick, you've overexposed it. So you try and teach them. So we got it all done 1 week, and it was extremely challenging, and it was wonderful, and it was great. And I took I actually, for the first time in my life, I actually took notes and turned it into HBO and told them what they had to do for the people that are in the whole building. But the last day, I took them to the Time Life lab. And I called up Time Life, and I said, "Listen, I'm going to bring a group of about 18 people in, and just to show him the lab. Is that okay? Yeah, no problem, fine. Just, you know the rules, you know, if the light's on, you can't bring them in. Okay, fine. So I'm there, and get there, start talking, and the light goes out. So I go in, and I walk in, go through the first door, and the second door, close the door, and there is Alfred Eisenstadt. And Izzy is making
didn't know that
amazing.
before, eh?
No, I did not know it. And he's making a print. So Izzy turns around and goes, "What the? Well, what the?" Yes, he said, "What are you
doing
What are
here?"
you doing here?" He didn't exactly say, "What are you doing here?" He used another term. So I said, "Izzy," I said, "What are you doing here?" He says, "I'm working on a print." That's what does it look like I'm doing in the darkroom. I said, I need a favor. And he said, "What's that?" I said, "I've got some people out here that would just absolutely die. They would love to meet you." I mean, yeah, Alfred Eisenstadt, the man who stood 22 inches from Adolf Hitler, you know, in 1938 or 37, and I talk about a set of testicles to be able to do that as a pretty difficult thing to do. That's for sure. I'm not sure I would have been able to do it, even though he was very young when he did it. And the looks that he received. There are photos of him shooting it, and some of the looks from some of the Nazis were just like, "Oh, we just want to carve this guy up into pieces." So he said, "Well, I'll be out in 5 minutes. Just wait until I get this work print done." So I go back out and I give him this big. I said, "You're going to meet the man who helped build this building. He helped build the actual building. Without that, you wouldn't have Time Life. And you're going to meet Izzy."
Did they know? Did that ring a bell to them? Alfred Eisenstadt? Nothing.
Nothing.
Eh.
No. Nothing. And I went, stroke time. I said, "Alfred Eisenstadt, do you remember the end of the war with Japan, with the sailor dipping the young lady, kissing her? Do you?"
The nurse. Yeah.
Yeah, super.
So he comes out, and I said, "This is one of the greatest photographers in the world, across the board. And you have access to him for a half an hour. Ask questions." I stood there and I asked about 15 questions. When it was all done, I was so disappointed. I mean, I looked at him. He's just such a beautiful man, really wonderful. Worked until he was deep into the 90s, 99, I believe. And I went back to talk to the junior vice president of HBO, and I said, "I'm not going to, I'm going to take my check for the 5 days that I did this." I said, "But a book needs to be made, and everybody who comes into this building needs to, as part of, getting the job, they need to read the book and understand how this building got here and the people that built it. And it's really mandatory that," let's put it this way. You gave me a beautiful introduction. You gave JoAnne a beautiful introduction. If it wasn't for 20, 30, or 40 photographers that took us under when we were in our 20s and said, "We're going to teach you this, we're going to teach you that," with the understanding that when the time comes, we have an obligation to pass it along to the other photographers. There are no secrets here. If you know how to do something with black and white and somebody doesn't know how to process this, you need to tell them how to do it and make it easy for them. The same thing with color. So whether they actually did it in the final analysis, I mean, I wrote a rough piece out, just the history of the building, the history of the people, and what can I say? I'll never forget the first time I met him. Just magnificent. Sure.
First photo You're 9 years old. You're born in Greenwich Village.
Yes.
What was Greenwich Village like in those days, and how did that influence, if it did at all, your choice of careers?
Greenwich Village, when I was...
We're talking the 50s, 60s.
Yeah, we're talking late 40s, early 50s, and it was magnificent because I would walk with my mother and go down to Bleecker Street and go across the street, and every place you would go when you were that short, all you would see is artwork that was up against the fence. And it would just go on and on and on. And I mean, as you're walking, you'd see, you can't imagine what you'd see. It was just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I can't explain it other than saying it was a time where it was beautiful. It was like, you know what it was like? It was a little tiny village, a small little village in the middle of, in those days it wasn't 13 million, it was more like 9 million people in the 5 counties. But you would, a woman on an August day at midnight could walk anywhere in Greenwich Village and no one would put a hand on her. No one would whistle at her. No one would just, you know what people do. They didn't do it in those days. And it was 100% Italian or 100% Jewish. It was a combination. It was kind of equal at the time. And all of the police, of course, were Irish. So you had to make sure you did well with the local police. And they made sure that they knew who you were, who your father was, and so on and so forth. Magnificent, beautiful, and lovely. I wouldn't have traded for anything. And one of the things that I didn't know until I was about 18 is I would see this one sign that was, I didn't know what the word meant, but it began with a F, and it was just fan something. Fantastic. And I would see billboards for fantastic over and over again, fantastics, for years and years, and then finally realized what it was. And when I finally went to the first show that I saw in the original theater of the Fantastics, I went back 6 times and saw it.
Wow.
You know, and you could just sit there and you were part of the whole thing. It was magnificent.
So growing up there and as a kid, you thought that's the way the world was.
Absolutely.
The way the West Village was, like, hey, this is everything, man. If I go anywhere else, this is what it's going to be like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, terrific. Now, at 9, you take your first picture. At 16, you sell your first, you actually become a paid photographer, if I
Yes.
could say that?
Yes.
Do you remember that picture?
I do. It was a high school kid by the name of Newman, and he was a pitcher. And this local newspaper bought it, and I think it was $5.50. I think total $5. That's with the printing and everything. So, but
So that was your first shot, right? 16 years old, you're now professional. Now, then what happened? You know, for 50 years.
well, then I went to college to teach history, and thought I was doing my student teaching, and realized that this is not what I wanted to do. So I made a very conscious decision that photography was going to be part of my life and the integral part of my life. And it was not the easiest decision in the world to make because my dad was a school teacher, and he got his. I went to his college graduation after the war at NYU, and then he got his master's and he got his doctorate. So he wasn't particularly happy, but at the end, he's just said, well, he did okay. He did okay.
That's like telling your parents you're going to become an actor.
Yeah.
You know, where's the steady money?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I mean, that's not a career. That's a fantasy.
Well, if you want steady money, you do not want to go into the business of photography. That you don't want to do. If you want to love something, if you want to be able to communicate with people, If you want to do, important things and then beautiful things with a camera, that's what you should do. And you can't, money is not going to be the criteria. It really won't. It's it just doesn't work that way. Let's put it this way: there was a point of time where it was held, it was held up here, and writers were up here, and photographers and artists, and now it's totally different because the new camera is, this is King. King is
quality.
yeah. King is calling me from Florida.
JoAnne, you do commercial, obviously, and you do a lot of non-commercial stuff. I heard it saying one time that people who do things like that, the commercial aspect is for the economics, the personal stuff is for love.
The way it is, for the most part.
You don't have a preference, do you, as to which type of shoot you'd like to do?
Well, nowadays there really isn't that much commercial stuff out there. I mean, everybody's a photographer. So, I enjoy doing it. I enjoyed working for all the magazines and having that kind of clout, wanting to photograph somebody. For instance, I always wanted to photograph Julia Child. I am a big foodie.
Wow.
But at the time, I could never get backing for a story. Like I would propose stories to different or they'd hire me for certain things. But that one time, I wanted to really do a story on her, just really, and I couldn't get anybody behind me, and she wouldn't let me. I never did the story I wanted to do on her. But when you have that kind of backing, like I work for Sports Illustrated, and the doors would just fly. Who do you work for? Sports Illustrated. You get in there and you can just do anything. So that was kind of cool. It just opened, photography just opened a lot of doors for me as far as working in editorial and having jobs like that. I enjoy doing advertising even more. But right now, doing what I want is also kind of fun. And that's the way it's going these days. And I love it. I mean,
well, your background is also very broad, as is Joe's. You super portrait photographer. Your sensuality series, digital stuff that you're doing.
right.
Some of the other design work that you're doing, different ways of using color. It's always interesting to me. How do you transition? I mean, to me, like life is a bit like a train, and you get off here on a stop and you do a little stuff there at that stop and you get back on the train. That's how things happen to you.
Right.
Did you kind of have a plan for your career?
Actually, no. No, it just happened. I mean, I always liked photography. As a young girl, I used to work with my father a little bit in the darkroom, and then I worked for Nikon while I was also going to school, and that was another good situation. And I met Joe there, and Joe kind of said, "Hey, you're really good," whereas I never would have thought I was good, to the point where, you can really get and do this for a living. So that was, inspiration, and
That's like
it just kind of happened. I mean, I was in the right place, the right time. I mean, I had experience, but things happen with Sports Illustrated, and I got a job. I photographed the Long Beach Grand Prix.
Yes.
And I was
Mario Andretti.
Yes, and I was. I got a great shot, and I was the only photographer in the entire place that got a whole motor series of a near fatal shunt. And got a funny story. Got a really funny story. As we were leaving, we usually
This is in Long Beach.
Long Beach. Joe was there as well.
Okay.
And I was at the start of the race. The first corner as they were coming around. And Joe went long this time, and I went short. I went wide. I was doing the corner. And I got the series. And after the race, as we were leaving, and we were leaving with I was leaving with Joe, another photographer, and they had made an announcement about the near fate, the shunt that happened in the first turn. And Joe said, "Did you see that? I didn't even see it." And Michael said, I didn't see it." And I went, "Yeah, I got the whole thing." And the two of them like locked eyes and went, "Huh?" What? I mean, I just sounded like, I got the whole thing. And shortly afterwards, at the time we were shooting Ektachrome, and we had like maybe 20, 30 rolls of film because we were there for like 3 days for the qualifications and everything else.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of film, little slide boxes that we went through. We went to a local lab and got our film developed like an hour later. And the first box I opened had the whole jump series. And I went, "See?" And the two of them the two of them could not believe it. So they said, "You have to call Sports Illustrated." And I was like, "What?" "What?" And I did. And they wound up Learjetting the photos back to Sports Illustrated. And I got it in the magazine. And that's how I got my foot in the door there. And they later used it for the Year in Pictures.
Yes, it made the cover of the Year in Pictures.
And they used to tease Joe about that I worked for Sports Illustrated before. But it got my foot in the door, and I had, a number of other assignments for them. But it was good.
That is great.
So it happened. It happened like that.
Yeah, it's almost kind of whimsical in a way, isn't it? How it just happened.
But it was great to see the guys' faces.
Yeah.
It was,
Now, was that the first moment that you felt that you were good enough to show that you could share your work with other people? Because sometimes the curse of a creator is that you're so adverse to putting yourself out there, and that first feeling that this is good enough. I mean, this is quality stuff. People want to see my work. Was that it? Was that Sports Illustrated thing, or was
I think that was definitely a good point, in my career. I don't remember thinking about that much. I just kind of did it. I did it because I enjoyed doing it, but I'm trying to think. I don't really remember how many assignments I had. Like a little bit here and a little bit there, but like nothing much. Nothing much. Do you remember anything?
One of the things that I talked about Dennis being number one as far as the show is concerned, and JoAnne being number two. JoAnne has a tremendous talent. She really does. And she has a large talent. She also has something else. She has a very small ego. And she very rarely, tells people what she's done. But she was the first woman to be, for Sports Illustrated, to be at the Indianapolis 500. Women were not allowed to be, shooting the Indianapolis 500. She was the first woman to do that. She was the first woman to be in the say the word, Joe. You can say the word. I know you can say the word. In the Madison Square Garden, photographing the Rangers in the penalty box. You're in the penalty box. There's no glass in front of you, and pucks are going by. Sticks
guys are crashing into the board.
And she was the first woman to do that. And she had so many firsts that it was absolutely ridiculous. And the guys at SI, she was at SI 18 months before I was, even though I was 8 years older than she was. And they would tease me, when I was still working in the business, but I wasn't working for SI. And they'd say, "Oh, yeah, here comes Joe. Yeah, he's hanging on JoAnne's coattails," And
that was kind of fun.
I bet. Did you enjoy that?
I enjoyed it.
It kind of puffed you up a little bit more.
But Joe
Come on, Joe.
Joe was good about it.
Yeah.
He was good about it.
Can you grab my bag, Joe?
The day that she made this photograph, what she forgets to tell you is that it was about 100 degrees that day, and there were 1,500 photographers covering. This is the first race in Long Beach. So she's there, and we had to pick a place. And there were 4 or 5 guys from Sports Illustrated who were being paid to be there. She wasn't paid by Sports Illustrated to be there for that. And she decides that this is where she wants to go. And I said, "There's a pretty good spot. I think I'm going to go right here." So she sets up, I set up, and 3 hours before the event, so you can't go to the bathroom. You can't.
Kind of have to shape up, get to
there's,
position.
There's no bathroom.
Don't eat,
There's,
don't drink,
there's nothing you could do. Yeah, you don't eat. If you're lucky, if you had a Hershey bar or a, that's about it. And there's a countdown of about 6 minutes before the race starts, and this very large gentleman, maybe 6 foot, I don't know, 3 or 4, with one of the big Sony cameras, the big ones, not the little ones, comes by and decides this is the place that he wants to be. So he takes the camera and he puts it basically on JoAnne's shoulder to get ready to shoot the start. And JoAnne just said, "Please move the camera." Like there was room for him, but she was just in her space, and he wasn't going to listen to some little tiny, wasn't going to
It's
listen.
happened before.
And,
Before that too, I had a bad experience.
So she again asked him in a nice way to just kind of remove the camera from the shoulder, and he didn't do anything. And I was about ready to get up and stand there and just go, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the next thing I know, she goes, boom, and this guy goes down like a ton of bricks. So
He deserved it.
And that's it's difficult. Women don't have the advantages that men have in our society in the 60s and the 70s and the 2000 now. Women are not, they could be magnificent people, wonderful, but men are always ready to be on top of it and just say, well, she does this, she does that, she's in a bitchy mood and stuff like that. When men do it, it's okay, but, when women do it, they're just bitching into stuff like that. She was the first woman inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, obviously as a photographer, not as a hockey player. So she's had an amazing career, and when I think about it, I genuinely think she's a better photographer than I am in many ways. She's just she's I've looked at some of her work at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and look at it and go, "Oh man, I wish the hell I did that." I mean, it's just magnificent stuff, and you have to learn. Most of my teachers when I was 26, 27, 28, 29 were 55, 60, and 70 years old. And they made sure to let you know that, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about, if you're covering something that's important, it's about the event. And especially when you're doing journalistic work, you have an obligation to do the right thing at the right time. Put your ego, leave it in the trunk of the car. Don't try and be a hot shot or a hot or whatever. You don't want to do that. You just want to you want to do a really great job. And JoAnne is very low key.
I'd rather my work speak for itself. I don't I don't want to talk about it so much.
Speaking of that, in some materials that you sent to me, you mentioned that your photography allows you self-expression. There's an old saying that in every creative piece, there's a small piece of the artist in there somewhere. How do you think your work says, "Hi, I'm JoAnne Kalish"?
Oh my goodness, that I don't know. I mean, I just try to interject or have something me about it, that shows. I try to come up with some. I don't know how to say this. Have some sort of style and just have some sort of little twist that I would put in there to recognize my particular style. I don't know. I don't know how else to say it.
I look at your work and I think the pastels speak to a certain sensitivity, and I think that has to be part of the artist. I mean, as you create that piece, just the selection of colors or what you're going to do to that piece. But that to me just spoke of almost the subtleness, those pictures that are than you're in your pastels.
Well, absolutely. It's just, and it's a totally different style or subject that I've ever, I've never photographed things like that. You know, I mean, I've always liked to do still lifes and,
Portraiture?
of course, portrait. I love portraiture. And portraiture of, especially artists. I like to do portraits of artists. So, yeah, portraiture is very important to me as well.
I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an artist. I live with one. I know one, so to speak. But those things that make a good creative piece, whether it be sculpture, painting, photography, or anything like that, isn't planned. That when you sit down with works and things like that, how you prepare, how you edit, how do you create the final piece, isn't a thoughtful process. It's just something that seems to come out. I mean, you're standing there, you're looking at the piece, and all of a sudden you say, it needs this. I need motion in this thing
Right.
to kind of bring it to life a little bit. But you don't plan all of that when you have the first rough draft, so to speak.
Well, it depends on what I'm doing. I mean, there was a period of time where I was doing a sensuality series. And before I did the series, I had a certain things in my head. I wrote down, I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do this and that. And as I progressed into the shoot, things start to happen, and you start working with the person. And I like the rapport back and forth, and especially with digital cameras now, you can say, this is what I did, this is how you look, this is what I want you to, let's do a little more of this. So it's easier to go back and forth with them, and it just, things happen, and it's like a magical moment when those things happen and everything clicks, the light's right, and you have your experience, but it's also working in the situation and it all coming together. And I love that, the magic of photography.
How do you choose your images? I mean, you shoot. I mean, to me, walking outside as a non-photographer, I mean, everything to me is a photograph. I should say everything to me is a picture. Everything to you is a photograph. And the subtle difference there is that I might do it just to send to my Aunt Minnie in Florida, and you would do it to create a piece, a finished piece.
Right,
of
a
art.
photograph rather than a picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But how do you choose your images? How do you select what you want to shoot? Some of your still life is magnificent.
Thank you.
And the design stuff, a lot bolder than the pastel stuff. But what gets you from one genre, so to speak, to the next one, or you just kind of...
I don't know. I've just been playing lately. It's just taken me different places. I'm just trying to come up with a series that I can, kind of get my teeth into and start working with. And as far as like my sensuality series, I kind of started to lose models. Everybody was interested in, people were interested in working with me. And now all of a sudden everybody has their own little cameras and they turn around and go like this or like that.
Selfies.
Yeah, and they look at me when I say, I'd really like to photograph you, and I can, and I'm such and such, and here's my website, and they don't think anything of it anymore. It's like, they never call me back. So I said, well, let me start working with something else. So I've tried to work with a series where I can kind of develop it and play with it and take it as far as I can take it.
Right.
Not that I want to give up on the sensuality or any of those other things that I've done along the way,
Right.
but that's where I'm at.
Right. Now, Joe DiMaggio,
Yes.
Sports Illustrated, Time Magazine, ABC TV, Olympic Games, ESPN, Discovery Channel, HBO. Then you got time to write a book, fill the frame. Then you got time to do teaching of other artists or up-and-coming artists. Then you have time to lecture. Then you have time to make films. Who is the real Joe DiMaggio in there?
Wow.
Well, I mean, what a terrific career, and the body of work is amazing. And again, I'd say to the viewers, if you want to see some good artwork, make sure you're here November 1st. Opening is at 6 p.m., 6 to 9. That'll be the opening reception. And once the show is up, it'll be up for a while. But who is the real Joe DiMaggio? I should ask JoAnne.
The I have what's known in the business of having a big mouth. That means I shoot my mouth off when I should really be quiet. And anybody who wants to get me to shut up, if they want me to shut up, all they have to do is ask me one question. What do you do? Yeah. My first editor was Sally Lloyd. I was 25 years old and walked into Image Bank, which was the highest of the high. You couldn't get higher than the Image Bank in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. That's as high as you could go as far as that type of work was concerned. And Sally, I expected everybody to go, no, we don't want you. And they said, sure. The president of the stock of Image Bank, when he signed me, said, let me show you this. And he handed me a check for $88,000 that was written to Pete Turner for his photograph, and he made $88,000 for it. And he said, if you want to be like this, you're going to have to produce. And after working with Sally for a total of 35, 40 years as my editor, she said something that when I'm on my deathbed, I will remember. And by the way, I told her, when she told me this, I said, you're wrong. She said, I'm looking at your new stuff, and it is 20 years ahead of everybody else. And I said, Sally, I think I'm 20 years behind everybody else. I don't think I'm ahead of everybody else. I think I'm behind. And I genuinely, I mean that. I really do. You can't, no matter what. There was a period of time when I genuinely believed I knew everything there was about photography. Everything.
That's the time to quit.
And then I realized that I knew nothing, zero, bupkis. And today, people, the kids come to me and say, how do we do this? How do they do it? And I said, well, this is the way I did it. No, that's the way you do it with film. How are you going to do it with a digital camera? And you realize that the new technology requires a whole new brain way of actually thinking. Yeah. And again, when it hit in 99, 2000, I thought it was terrible. I mean, you can't believe in God anymore because you're going to use this and that and the other thing. I was like, digital, you need film. You need something to go into the dark room with and process. So it's, if nothing else, I'm learning to relearn everything. And I'm taking photographs that I took when I was 13, and I'm going back and looking at a photograph. I just showed JoAnne some photos that I took in 1967, and they were horrendous. They were vile, they were terrible, and they were disgusting. And I'm looking, and I decided to show it to my physical therapist, and he looks at me and he goes, that's Sam Huff. And I go, yeah, because I was photographing the Giants. But technically, the photography was disgusting. It was terrible. It was everything I was trying to teach these people. I didn't know myself because I was too damn young. So it allows you just to continue to learn. Every day you learn more and more and more and more. And that's the beautiful part about being part of, in this particular case, photography, art, whatever it is. I paint now. I was a failed painter as a kid. When I say failed, I mean garbage, trash, and today I do it not for anybody in this room. I do it for myself, and the bulk of it, if reality, when I step back, I go, garbage goes in the garbage. Just get rid of it. I went over to look at Ben's work, and then I looked at some other things, and saw some stuff, and I went, wow, this is fabulous. This is really beautiful stuff. We went to an opening last night, and we saw some oil on paper, and I had never seen oil on paper before. Oil on canvas I had seen, but not on paper. And it was magnificent. So the thing that you want to do is you want to keep your you want to think that there's a million things out there, and you're always looking for something new.
For the one.
Absolutely. And I think that's what you have to do. And that's the way I feel.
Yeah. My brother once said to me, he said he stopped doing painting because he was a silversmith initially, then a painter, and then ultimately into heavier sculpture stuff. Still has a lot of painting. But I said to him, why'd you quit painting? And he said, the things they're just never done. He says, I finish them, I put them over in the corner, and it's sitting there staring at me, and I go, I'm starting a new piece, and I got to go over, no, I got to put a little black over here, or I got to change it. He said, so I got to turn them around. They're never done. I don't want them anymore, He said with the sculpture, and he said to me one time, he said, I wish I'd have studied photography. I mean, even there's a process to the final piece, but when you shoot something, that's it. You can't go back and ask the subject, can you come and sit for me again? I got your left cheek instead of your right cheek or whatever.
Well, nowadays you can.
Nowadays
You can change it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Explain, and you use this term, and I found it very interesting in a broad sense, but visual literacy. What do you mean by visual literacy?
Your ability to generate a photograph that's going to change somebody's attitude. You know what literacy is. You read a book, and read the book, and you're gonna go from point A to point B, and you're gonna learn something. With a photograph, if I went to the University of Missouri School of Journalism to learn how to be a journalistic photographer. Having said that, I'm going to look at the camera and say, I never attained anything serious as a photojournalist, because the people that I worked with were photojournalists over here, and I was a photojournalist over here. And when you meet people that like Eisens, that changed the world with one image of Adolf Hitler, and then 4 or 5 years later changed one image of the end of the Japanese war, the Japanese part of the war. When you that's what visual literacy is. My instructor, Cliff Edom, was in his late 80s, and I would get to Missouri, and it was really simple. I'd say, "Hi, Cliff," and he goes, "Don't talk to me. We don't say hello. Beautiful day."
He wasn't a small talker.
We don't talk about the beautiful day. We don't talk about whether it's raining or not. But the only thing, you had 20 of the greatest editors from Life magazine, Look magazine, Saturday Evening Post, Time magazine. They were your instructors. And you would go there, and it would be, I was rejected 1 year, never made it. Then I applied another year, never made it. The third year, the fourth year I made it. And you go there, and photographers of people who have been in the business a long time would be at the workshop there, and the next morning they were gone.
Or they break out crying.
They just leave. They get on a plane and they fly back to New York.
It was very intense. It was very...
Because visual literacy, they hand you 3 rolls of film. Okay, you have a camera, your camera, 3 rolls of film. They say, okay, Now you need to do a picture story with the 3 rolls of film. And God help you if you use more than 2 rolls. If you use more than 2 rolls, boy, you better do it. This better be the greatest story you've ever seen. And if you're going to do the story and the photograph is somebody going like this, that was one image. If the second one you went like this, no. It has to be one image, end of discussion, and not sit there and go through 36 images of just bull. And you had to learn how to do that. And it was, I have to tell you, frightening, especially when you're looking at some of the number one talent in the world. This is not the United States, this is the world. I mean, these people are coming from all over the world. And it was just, and to this day, you know, you look back and you still see these people. Out of my group, I mean, I think there are only 3 left that are still on the planet. So, but
he did a beautiful job.
Visual literacy, I don't use the S word. I don't like the S word. I don't like subject. If you're going to photograph a tree, call it a tree. If you're going to photograph a bottle, call it a bottle. If you're going to photograph a woman, call her a woman, or by her first name or her whole name. But I found this little girl who was about 4 years old, and her name was Yvonne. And Yvonne's mother went to an outhouse, and she went to the bathroom and out popped Yvonne. She didn't know she was pregnant. So in not knowing she was pregnant, what happened was no vitamins, no prenatal, nothing, 0. And Yvonne was absolutely so beautiful. She could not hear, and she could not see very well. She couldn't hear at all. She couldn't speak at all. She could see a little bit, but not a lot. And I could understand the part of seeing, because I lost the vision in this eye when I was between 3 and 4 years old. I lost this eye, so I only have one eye. And people say, well, how can you be a photographer? So used to one eye, what the hell, it doesn't make anything. So, you know, I'm looking at Yvonne and realizing that she was controlling everything. And it was just so beautiful. So, and to this day, I mean, right now, every minute I'm looking for the original negatives and I can't find them.
It was also about the nurse that was taking care of Yvonne as well, that developed a relationship with this little girl and would take her back to the farm. She lived on a farm, and she would take her back on the weekends, you know, and spend that little extra time with her and everything. I happened to be there. We were seeing each other at the time, and they let me come to the class, and I couldn't use a camera, you know, but I went through the whole class with Joe, or the whole experience, and it was a great, really great experience.
Yeah.
And he really, the stuff he did was so beautiful. He really knocked it out of the park, I thought.
I don't, you see, thank you, but I disagree. I didn't do anything. I showed up. I showed
But you
up.
saw something.
He researched the story.
It was her story, not my story.
But he researched, I mean, with a newspaper, you know, it was in Missouri, you know, so that part was just great. And it was just, and the story was beautiful. And it just like kind of unfolded right in front of the camera, and Joe captured every shot. So.
That I think is I guess it's a blessing and a curse together, because when you see something that somebody else might not see, I mean, what makes a good photograph? What makes a good image? What makes good visual content? You know, you see something. It's like, I write a little bit of poetry, but I can see one thing: an older woman carrying a big heavy bag, holding the hand of a 3-year-old girl crossing the street. And I might just turn real quick and see that, and it just stimulates something in me. And I'm sure with your photography, knowing the story and the research that you did on this little girl, when you get there, you're taking pictures of things that maybe somebody else wouldn't take pictures of because you're seeing a different girl. You're seeing a different person.
Yes.
You
Yes.
see something different in that person than I might see.
This young lady was so special that, I mean, I went back, I guess 10, 15 years later, wanting to photograph her again. This would be 3 and she'd be 15. And she was adopted. And they intentionally changed her name from Yvonne. She didn't have a last name. And no matter what I did, they would not tell me where she went or, and I said, look, just, get in touch with the people who adopted her. She would now be, I guess, 50 or more than 50.
Did they say?
Yeah. And it just to go back and see her as a grown woman, I think that part would be really beautiful. But no matter what I've done, I actually had a friend of mine who's a detective, and he said, no, he says, this is something I can't help you with. They don't want you to find her, and they changed her name, and she went, I don't know where she went, but she was no longer in Missouri or anything. It's a beautiful way of expressing yourself, and people really should. My father called me. He called me up, and he said, "Hi, you have any photos of Grandma?" I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Do you have any photos of Grandma?" And the first thing I say, Grandma died. And she died. And that's when we're going to look for photographs of Grandma. You don't want to wait until Grandma dies, to get the photos of Grandma. You don't want to do that. And the visual literacy is your ability to make a photograph with the understanding, and I believe it was Kodak. I think Kodak said, the stick was, a stop in time, a second in time that you stop some things. And you don't realize how important those things that you stop can be. It's some of it just changes the world. It really does. Especially the people, the consummate professionals. It's a great means of expressing yourself. So that's where visual literacy comes from.
And it's history. I mean, there is a visual history of events, people in their lives, as you said, because it's almost like you can create a chronology, so to speak. Here was this little girl when she was 3, and that you could have gotten back to her at 12, maybe at 15. Now, if you could find her at 50, and just that chronology is a story in and of itself. Without words, it's a pictorial representation of life in that.
Brody, I can't believe you said that. Without words. That's what they would say. The instructor would go, if you take a photograph of a grandfather with a grandson at sunset at the lake, catching a fish on one of those the bamboo poles, and it goes, grandfather at sunset with little girl catching a fish at sunset on lake. If you need the words, throw the photo out.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
It didn't work. You don't need all of that gobbledygook.
It tells its own story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you hit the nail on the head.
That old picture's worth 1,000 words. It's gone.
That's right.
They don't use that anymore. That's old school. Let's talk just for a minute. I know I don't want to go too long. I'm impressed with both of your works, and I've looked at Dennis's stuff, and it's absolutely amazing. And again, I'd say to the public out there, to the viewers, don't forget, November 1st, 6 to 9 p.m. for the opening reception. Ann will be here. JoAnne will be here. Joe will be here. Hopefully Dennis will be
Dennis
here.
will be here.
But you will see some of the finest visual objects of art that you've ever seen in your life. And let me just kind of use that to jump into portraiture. What does Mike Tyson mean to you?
Wow. Mike,
You took the picture of Mike Tyson,
well,
the photograph.
I have to tell you, there was a little bit of luck involved in it, and people have said that to me. Oh, that must have been lucky. I got permission through the lawyers and through all of the personnel on Mike Tyson to photograph him at the Plaza Hotel at approximately 5 a.m. in the morning. So we set up, I had to do 3 different covers for 3 different publications, one in Italy, one in Spain, and one in the United States. So, but you couldn't do the same shot over and over again because people want different shots. So he shows up, and we got there about 3 o'clock, but our
Babysitter?
thank you. Our babysitter was not available, so we had to take our, I guess, 3-year-old or 2-year-old son with us in one of those little bassinet things at 1 o'clock in the morning to get to the Plaza Hotel to set everything up. And so we put him down, and I'm setting up the lights, get everything done, and we have 1 hour to photograph Mike to the 3 covers. 1 hour. And we had this in writing. I mean, so this wasn't an accident. And all of a sudden, Mike walks in, and he's got my son under his arm with his head and his feet are dangling like this. He's not knowing, So I said, he goes, who's this little bastard belong to? I said, oh, that's ours, can I have the kid pick it up? So he gave he gave Dylan back to JoAnne, and you mark everything off like it's Hollywood, where you want somebody to stand on the tape. And I said, hi, Mike. And this guy goes, you can cut the effing small talk and get your ass moving. Yes, you got 1 minute to get this done. I said, excuse me? 1 minute is all you're getting of Mike Tyson time. 1 minute. And I said, no. Look, here's the paperwork. We have him for 1 hour. And he goes, 55 seconds. Then he just starts counting down. So I took 3 or 4 very quick photos of Mike. And the first one was horrendous. The second one was worse than horrendous. The third one was garbage. And you can tell when you look through the camera, when you know what you want or what you think you want, you know that it's a failure. You just, this is not working.
You know when you got it.
Yeah,
That's true, too.
Yeah,
you got it. So, and the gentleman he had an entourage of about 12 people, or I didn't count, but it was a bunch. And this guy is counting the 38 seconds left, And I looked at him, I said, Mike, how upset are you that what's his name? What was his name? Michael Spinks didn't show up for the shoot. He goes, I'm effing really pissed. I said, well, how pissed are you, Mike? He goes, I'm really pissed. I said, but I mean, how pissed are you? You keep saying you're pissed, but I don't see you being pissed. And he goes, I could scream. I said, then scream. And he screamed.
And made the face.
And he made that photo. And
that was black and white too.
It was done. Okay, well, remember what I told you about not lying. Okay. So it was originally done in color. It was not done in black and white. It was originally done in color. And then years later, after it was sold to many, many different venues for a substantial amount of money, I decided that this really would look better. That for that 38 seconds, I said minutes, 38 seconds, it really should have been done with, another camera in black and white, because those were film days, and obviously I think it was 1979, 1980, I think.
And you have hundreds of portraits that are equally as impressive.
I thank you. Thank you. I don't.
Did they find you? I mean, does somebody call up and say, hey, you're Joe DiMaggio. I want you to come and shoot me. My name is, I don't know,
I,
some famous person.
no.
No?
I mean, once you meet somebody, then it's a different story.
While we're looking,
Yes.
arts and antiques, JoAnne.
Yes. Yes.
The name Will Barnett.
Uh-huh.
Tell me a little about that shot. I mean, Will Barnett is famous in his own right, obviously. And you were fortunate enough, I guess I could say fortunate enough, to be able to be in his presence and take some portraits. Tell me how that worked, because the photos, and I've seen a few different ones, are magnificent representations of Will Barnett. How did all that come about?
Well, thank you. Well, I was given the assignment. It was just when they had changed the format for the magazine. They had just done a spread on Hockney. And so it was a big assignment. I really didn't know who Will Barnett was at the time. And then I started researching, and I was very impressed with his work. We set up a shoot for a certain date, and I researched the whole place and his studio, and he was in this gallery off of Sutton Place, not Sutton Place, Gramercy Park, the National, what is it called? The National Arts Building. What was in here, like a duplex there. So I figured it all out. I figured my lights and everything else, and I think it was like the day before the actual shoot, the magazine called and said he canceled. He doesn't want to be photographed. I was devastated. I was totally devastated. And I remember the writer calling me up and said, what did you say to her? I was like, I didn't say it. I mean, we got along great on the phone. I had, no problem. So I figured, well, gone. The whole story's gone. Big story, gone. Anyway, about a month later, I get a call and they said the story's back on. But you can't bring an assistant. You can't do this, you can't do that. You can't wear jeans in the building. You can only call him Mr. Barnett. All this stuff.
The Pope.
Oh, yeah, really. I mean, it was just so I went, and I had my shot list in mind where I was going to photograph him and so on and so forth, and I'm painting. And again, it was like a several-page spread, which it didn't turn out to be, but this is what they said.
In Arts and Antiques magazine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And anyway, we were going back and forth. We were at the easel. We were over here. We were over there. And it was at a point where, I'd go, and Mr. Barnett, would you stand up there? And one time he kind of didn't hear me. And I said, and I didn't think about it. And I said, Will, would you stand over there or sit over there, please? It's really nice over here. And after that, he kind of looked at me, gave me this look, smile. And it was all of a sudden we just kind of clicked.
It became more personal.
It did.
Despite calling
And
his first name.
well, this is the funny part. Went around the studio, and long and the short of it is after the shoot was over, I went to the bathroom before I left because I was driving all the way back to here. And I looked in the mirror, and my face was covered with blue paint. And all the time, he didn't tell me this, right? He didn't say a word. And that was what happened at that, but it was fun. So after the assignment, I would send him a portrait. He really, and I asked him if he'd sign one for me, and, this was for him. And we wound up getting a little friendly. And when I went to pick it up, I don't know, we got friendly. We started talking about art. I asked if he'd look at my book and just tell me what he thought. And so we got to be friendly. And every time I was in the city, if I was kind of nearby, I'd say, well, I'm coming in, you got a little time for me. I figured he'd give me a half an hour or something like that. So we got really friendly. So when the the story of the whole thing is one day I called him, and he said, "Well, I'm with my son. We're going down to I'm getting a haircut or something like that. So we were going downstairs, and we went into Gramercy Park, and we're sitting there, and his son is a lawyer, and he's older than me, you know, and he's sitting across with his girlfriend or something. And Will and I are like giggling, you know, like Will says, this is how we met, you know, they didn't know what the story was. The two of us are like buddy, you know, giggling on the bench. And he told him the story about how we met and with the paint and the whole bit. And then afterwards, he said, Will looks at me and he said, I want you to know this is my favorite portrait that has ever been done of me. He said, and over the years, I've been photographed by so many famous portrait photographers, and most recently, Albert who? Am I saying his name right?
Millman.
I'm just blanking out here. But anyway, and I went and I was like, he said, I want, if it's okay with you, I'd like my portrait to be your portrait shown with my work wherever my work is shown. And I was like, it's like that. And it was great. It was great. And it has been. I mean, he called us one night for New Year's. I mean, I was always blown away when he called. He was 101. Yeah, well, at the time he was, I think, 98, 97, 96 when I photographed him. But I mean, he called me like call us for New Year's, and I was blown away. I mean, that was crazy. That was crazy. I mean, we got to be really, really close.
He just told her, he said, don't wear that blue makeup anymore.
And he was beautiful, very inspiring, and he taught a lot. But he was very encouraging, especially considering his age and to a woman. And he was just always very encouraging for my artwork, and he was lovely. He was absolutely, and every time I'd hang up with him or see him, I would walk out with a smile on my face like this. I was like on cloud nine. Yeah.
And now that portrait hangs in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C.
It does.
It's a permanent exhibit, I guess.
Yeah. In the portraits.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have one thing to say. He invited us to lunch one day, and we're having lunch, and JoAnne was having a glass of wine, and she excused herself to go to the ladies' room. And I was sitting there with Will, and he looks at me and he goes, you know, I really love JoAnne. And I said, I know you love JoAnne. I love JoAnne too. I said, that makes us, we're brothers under the skin. We both love JoAnne. He goes, Don, yeah, I really love her. I said, I've already figured this out, Will. I really love her. I said, I only have one eye, but I still can see.
I can love. Yes.
But it was, absolutely beautiful. Really beautiful relationship. Magnificent.
Amazing.
I'm going to look it up only because I have to. And there's Ann. Thank you. Oh my God, look at it. Bud Schulberg.
Bud Schulberg.
There we go.
So I went to photograph Bud, and you very quickly have to learn everything. I mean, he just was one of the greatest writers of all time, and he's another one. We go out to dinner. And now watch me get this wrong too. Oh boy. And we're talking. And when he talks, you don't say a word. You just sit there like this and you listen. Because again, he was 20 plus years older than I was. And he said, yeah, he says, every time, we'd go out and we'd party with I did it again.
Bud Schulberg's friends.
No. And I see, look into the camera. See this? Asshole. See this? They go like this. Asshole. Can't remember anything. This goes back to Dennis when he'd say Andy, and he'd be talking about. He said, "Yeah, well, Scott and I would get drunk. It was like crazy." And he goes, "Yeah, well, Scott, we used to, we'd go out and we'd just drink and drink." So finally, I'd be sitting there and I go, "Scott who?" And he goes, Scott, F. Scott Fitzgerald, you jerk. Don't you know who the hell I'm talking about? And I'm going, huh? Oh, you mean F. Scott Fitzgerald? They were buddies.
What's the great Gatsby Fitzgerald?
Yeah,
That F.
yeah,
Scott
yeah,
Fitzgerald?
that's Scott Fitzgerald. So it's, and this goes back to, do you ever get close to the people? But he'd call me up and say, well, it's 4th of July, come to my house for party. So you'd go to the Hamptons and you'd be looking there and there'd be Frank Sinatra, and over there would be Truman Capote. And I mean, you're looking at all of these people and go, oh my God, this is like pretty amazing.
Basquiat.
No, he was not there. Basquiat was not there, no.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, for the viewers, again, the body of work is just astounding. And it's all super stuff. And you must be very, very proud of all of it. Favorite piece? Dumb question to ask an artist. Favorite piece? Do you have one? You have one that you want to make sure that your heirs get that nobody sells on the market?
Wow.
That's not for sale.
Well, I mean, my Will Barnett piece, but
Yes.
I mean, that's my favorite one.
That's your favorite
I
one?
mean, that I just
The,
loved them.
Well, the story, too, is part
Yeah.
of the charm of the portrait.
Yeah.
I have one piece that has never sold, and I don't make it. I don't go out of my way to try and sell it. It was done outside of the Museum of Modern Art on a Sunday, and it was an interesting day, and it was a man walking down the street with the Sunday New York Times. When the Sunday New York Times, you needed two hands to lift it up. Then now it's so small it looks like a regular newspaper. It doesn't, they don't put that into it anymore. But that piece, if that doesn't wind up in MoMA, I'm going to consider my career a total failure as applicable to that. So.
That's part of your bucket list, right? You want 12 permanent pieces at MoMA?
Well,
There's one.
Dennis kind of looks at me and goes, and he goes, yeah. He says, you're going to be maybe a little disappointed when that happens because it's not what you think. Yeah, I mean, the goal was at one point to get 12 pieces in MoMA before I die. And you do certain things. 90% of everything that I've ever done was not done just for money. And that includes the journalistic stuff. You put in more time than you were actually, that you had to make it as good as possible. And but you want to generate something that's going to have some legs to it. And you look at David, it was done in 1378, and it is today, it's still it's as important as anything else, or the Last Supper or something like that. I mean, you look at the Sistine Chapel, and we've seen that a bunch of times before they redid it. You can't, obviously, I can't put myself in the category of those artists, and I wouldn't dream to do that. You just want to have something left over that I think that's important.
Well, to the extent that, your life's work. I mean, somebody says, who's Joe DiMaggio? Who's JoAnne Kalish? Somebody should bring out a big book or invite you to a basement that's got, but to the extent that that's the history, all those photographs, all of those paintings, whatever, that's like a history of who that was. So your great-grandchildren say, Joe DiMaggio was my great-great-grandfather. Who was he? Well, here's his life, but it's just pictures. Again, we're back to that, art is historical, the historical aspect to different art. And it'd be neat to have all of them on a piece of film that you could just shoot individual images and say, here's Grandpa, here's Grandma. Here they are. They were 22.
But that's what they did, and we were talking before the show started. That's what they did in Cambridge. I mean, you could go and you could actually put 80 to 160 slides in there of whatever you were doing up to that point and just knock them out and show them to 200 people while they were sipping cheap red wine and cheap white wines.
Do you remember, does the name Wavy Gravy ring a bell?
Oh, God, yes.
Did you meet Wavy Gravy?
I
in
know,
Cambridge?
I know. I never met him. I did not meet him, but no.
Wavy Gravy? Anybody? No. All the old hippies know Wavy Gravy.
I went to a masquerade party last year, and somebody said, "You're Wavy Gravy," and I go,
Oh, I got all my teeth.
I was in I was in Japan, and on my way to Hiroshima, and kids came up to me like this. There were about 20 or 30 kids that were really small kids like this with pens and piece of paper. Go, Jerry, sign for me, Jerry. I'm going, what the hell? What are they talking about? Jerry Garcia, sign for me. So I signed Jerry Garcia autographs for about 20 minutes.
Wavy Gravy, just for the viewers, was the founder of the original hog farm, which was a bunch of hippies back in the 60s who had, they lived on they had their own area where they lived and everything. If you watch the Woodstock film, the Woodstock concert up in Bethel here, Wavy Gravy is in there about 15 times talking about, don't take the brown acid, stay with
Don't take the brown acid.
but they had a place where if you're having a bad trip, you're right. But they became an international phenomena with just these big microbuses or these big school buses, all painted up psychedelically. And there was a big following. We saw them in Germany.
Wow.
But my brother Ben remembers when he was with the Orson Welles Film School that they came into Cambridge. And there was about 15 of them in this bus. And they were going to do some kind of film thing or some kind of slide presentation or whatever. They all slept. A couple of them slept in the bus. Most of them slept right in the studio on the floor. This was not a financially clever endeavor by any means. But, we could go on forever. What I'd like to do is just very quickly, what do you shoot with these days? We're back to technology. What do you shoot?
Started with Nikon and Leica in the 50s and in the 60s up until Nikon until 1983 and a half. In 1984, I had to sign a contract with the IOC in the Olympics. And if you wanted to be part of the Olympics, you had to shoot not Nikon, but Canon. So you had to make, so you were telling the truth. You had to actually make the change from Nikon to Canon. So in 1983, so we shot the Olympics in 84 with Canon, and we couldn't use Kodak film. We had to use Fuji film. So we had it was a major change. And then we kept Canon. I kept Canon until approximately 8 years ago. And then I made a change to Fuji and went from Fuji to Sony.
Well, it's pretty much
Fuji.
we did.
And then and now I've standardized on Sony because its ability to, let's put it this way, there isn't anything I can't do with this one little tiny camera. I mean, if I want to shoot a feature film, I could shoot a feature film with it, very similar to the black that's over there. I mean, it's a magnificent camera. So, but I'm now a Sony guy, and absolutely love it.
Same. I don't know if I love it. It's a good camera.
Do you carry cameras with you? Do you have a camera in your pocket?
We used to carry cameras all the time.
I mean, something might just
But,
appear.
people look at you funny when you have a camera on your back these days. It's like you're like,
You're a
you
dinosaur.
stand out.
Yeah. What, you don't have a cell phone?
It's like, yes, exactly.
Okay.
So we don't carry them like we did before.
How have computers changed the nature of visual art? I mean, a painter can paint, but to a painter who paints, there's a marriage between the canvas, the paint, the brushes, or the hands, or whatever article you're using to paint that. But it's kind of, you can grab it, you can actually feel it, today there's so much being done electronically on computers, you know, that, I mean, my brother Ben would say, that's not art. You know, that's not art, what you guys are doing on those computers. I mean, you can't touch it. You can't feel it. There's no marriage between the two of you, or at least a strong relationship between the two of you. You know, do you find that to be true?
Well, I think that the computer does a lot of things, different things. I mean, I still love. I mean, I don't have one anymore, but loved working in the darkroom. All that was great. I like working on the computer. I like to play a little bit, and I don't play a lot, but there are certain things every once in a while I'll come up with something and it enhances it. But where things have gone in the last couple years, 2-3 years or whatever, it's not making me happy, and I don't want to get involved with it. I don't want to get involved to that point with the manipulation and all the fake stuff, and it turns me off. It's like kind of like people having fake breasts, and it's all that stuff, and fake lips, and it's like I can't stand it. I don't like it at all. I don't. But there's certain things that you can do now, and it's fun. It's like little things. Certain things work with certain photographs.
Do you edit many of your photographs? Do you add things to it? Do you
not not really. I mean,
create a certain feel to the picture?
Once in a while, but it depends. Again, each photograph is different, and what you want to do with it or bring to it, or it depends. It depends. But I can't say I use a certain technique for everything, or change that much.
Right.
So, but we have.
You think AI is a good thing or a bad thing? Artificial intelligence.
I don't like it.
You don't like it, Joe? Is there a place for it?
1999, I despised digital. I didn't want any part of this. I was a film guy, black and white. Go screw yourself. This is the way it's going to be. So now, fast forward 25 years, 26 years, I did use AI on a project that I did for a client. It was a very strange. It was extremely strange. I had to take 560 photographs that were approximately this big. They were about that big. They were wallet-sized images that were done really poorly. They were done they were not done properly. The poor photographer who shot it, and how I know he had this problem because I had this problem in 1970, 77. I started, when you photograph a person, the only part of the body that has to be sharp are the eyes. If you're going to take a photo of a man or a woman or a child, everything can be soft, but the eyes have to be sharp. And this photographer, I believe that, I still believe that today, I would look at my work and I would get the ear sharp and the eyes would be soft. And that's called back focusing. You think you're focusing on the eye, but you're actually focusing on the back of the ear. And so
And just that distance makes a difference.
oh God, night and day, it was like the end of the world. So they gave me these images, and I said, it would be better just to redo everything because we can't go back 25 years. Half of the people are dead, so you need to do this. So I did it. And as I was doing it, I bought an AI program. And I put them into the AI program. And much to my surprise, it worked very, very well for that type of a situation. Would I like to do it on your portrait today? No. I would rather do your portrait, okay, and make it right in the camera. And if it's not right in the camera, redo it again until it is right in the camera. But to just take it and then I don't want to say butcher it, but the client loved it. And the end of the story is the client loved it. The client paid the bill. So shut up, DiMaggio. It worked. So I mean, I still have the program. I haven't used it. I haven't used it since, about a year now since I actually did this project. So it's I the problem, the way I see it, is we intentionally hire young people, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And people say, why do you do that? Because I want to know what they're thinking, what they're listening to, what they're visually, when I sent you the images, the videos, my assistant said to me, it's got to be under 30 seconds. Nobody's going to want to watch anything that's 30 seconds. That's it. So, I mean, I'd have to cut stuff back from 4 minutes down to 15 seconds or 30 seconds. See, no matter what happens, the new people coming up are going to do what they do. I know really great photographers in California that, I'm talking people that had somewhere in the neighborhood about 40 or 50 covers for Fortune magazine, sold all his equipment, and he bought three of these things. He bought two, what is it?
iPhone 14.
No, he bought two of these and one of the other brand, and he's retired, but that's how he does it now. He can do video with one, still with another, portraits with another. So, I mean, you know what? No matter what I think, no matter what I say, it's going to go on and on and on.
Well,
there's nothing we can do about it. So
Change hands, we pass it on to the
That's
next
right.
generation. I guess ultimately what really matters is the final piece.
the final piece.
Nobody's going to ask a lot of people, how'd you shoot that with, where were you, that kind of thing. That's the piece. And who knows? I mean, it's more of a tool than it is an end process.
But it has its place.
It's got its place. I agree.
Good. How many pieces are going to be in the show? Have you selected them yet for Ann's show here, or your show here?
Dennis has finished. He's got 30 pieces. I don't know what JoAnne has. I think I have 20 pieces. I think. But I brought some things to show Ann, which we could look at, which I just realized that I put them in wrong, but we could look at it. It's some very large pieces. But, we're going to bring some pieces that are 4 foot by 6 foot.
I don't know. I didn't count them. Probably
Okay.
probably
Well, we're looking
25 pieces. I
50 to
was
75.
concerned about having too much, or so I don't know. Depends on how how it works out with all of us.
Is the worst part about a show hanging the show?
No, not really. I mean, I think it's just figuring out what
That's the work part.
like going through it over and over again and saying, "Oh, wow, is this going in? Is this and then figuring it out. That's all.
Okay, good.
So
So, director, how do we get Ann in the picture?
I do it, mate. Yeah.
there you go.
Do you pay her? And
Gonna give us a tour.
okay, all right, good.
But nice. Oh, that's one.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to do closing?
Well, just very quickly, yeah. We're still rolling. I think to close, and I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank Ann for being here and giving us the opportunity to come in your living room here
And thank you,
and
Thank you.
make a little show for the TV.
Thank you, guys.
Just to advertise.
ladies.
I guess what I'd like to do to finish, I want to requote Dennis's small bit of information that he provided to us, because to me, when I read that, that's art to me in a nutshell. I mean, it's a poem, what he wrote, but it's a poem about how you make art, and it's a poem about the process that you go through. And to me, it didn't speak to the wringing of hands of somebody who's maybe just getting started in an artistic endeavor. It's not the sweat on the brow, like, oh, Jesus, what am I going to do now? I sold a piece. What do I do for an encore? That kind of, all that worry side of it. It was just a very natural, very simplistic, very specific in its simplicity picture of what art is and what an artist goes through. And this is from Dennis Wheeler, who will also be here on the 1st of November. And Dennis says, and I like to think in my head that somebody say to him, tell me about how you do this. And he says, I start the work. I guide it. The paint paints. The photos do what the photos do. I stop it. I study it. I enjoy it. I may share it. I may not. Then I start on the next one. Just that simple. Just that simple. But that's certainly a whole book of things. And I'd like to, again, thank you guys for being down here. I'd like to thank our technical staff.
Thank you.
Guys did a
Thank you.
Thank you.
super job. And for the viewers out there, keep in mind, this is some of the best artwork you're going to see. If you got your calendar open, make sure you mark it down. The artist opening reception is November 1st from 6 to 9 p.m. And for those of you who might not know where R.H. Smith Mercantile is, if you know where the old Erie Depot is, it's right across the street. It's down at, I think it's 22 Jersey Avenue in Port Jervis, New York. It is a magnificent event space. And right after this, you're going to have a chance to meet Ann Rogers, take a little tour of the facility just so you can get an idea of what it would be like to not only be here to appreciate the show, but if you are artistic in your own way, to come down here. And Ann does many other events other than just artistic shows and things like that. She's one of the dynamos in our community, as is her husband, Paul Cox. And we're glad she's here, and we just love what they're doing with this particular facility. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again.